Welcome to the Laws of Shabbat. This will be part 25. Today's topic, boarding a bus or a plane on Motzi'ei Shabbat. Rav David Yosef Shlita in his Sefer Halacha Birura wants to address the issue, is one allowed to board a bus or a plane which is operated by a non-observant Jew? The case that we're going to see today, whatever halachot we're going to apply by the case of the bus, those same halachot are going to be applicable by the case of the plane. The bus case is not so common in New York, it's very common in Israel. The plane case is actually more common in New York than the bus case. We know that when it comes to bus operators, they have shifts. Let's give us an example. Reuven begins his shift on Shabbat at 6 p.m. His first pickup is at 7 p.m. But 7 p.m. is already when Shabbat comes out. Now, you have people over there that are standing at the bus stand, waiting to get on the bus. Can they get on that bus? The same halach is going to apply for a plane. If you have a pilot which took a shift at 4 or 3 p.m. on Shabbat, and he flew in from Florida to New York, now people that are coming after Shabbat to board that plane, are they allowed to board that plane which was flown into New York by a non-observant Jew? So these halachot we want to see. Once again, Rav David Yosef Shlita is going to go over the case of the bus, even though it's not very much applicable to us in New York, but we're going to learn it because all those laws are applicable to the case of the plane. If you had a bus which went out on its way, meaning it took route on Shabbat, let's say the shift began on Shabbat, והנהג הוא יהודי, and the bus operator is a Jew, מחלל Shabbat, who desecrates Shabbat. אף על פי שהמקל לנסוע בו מיד לאחר יציאת השבת, even though one who wants to be lenient and ride that bus immediately after the coming out of Shabbat, כשיש צורך גדול בדבר, when there is a great need, Yesh lo al mashi yismoch, he has what to rely on. There are some rabbis that are going to allow you to board that bus. The same halach is going to apply for the plane. That if there is a great need to get on that bus or that plane, we're going to tell you, you have rabbis that allow you and you are allowed to get on that bus or that plane and go to your required destination. Nevertheless, Rav David Yosef Shlita says, even though you have rabbis that allow you, mikol makom, nevertheless, nachon lehachmir, he says it is correct to be stringent. Shalol and so, but you shouldn't travel in it, ad sheyavor shiur hazman, until you wait for the proper time to have passed. What is the proper time? Hadarush lo, which was needed for him, kedei letzet ledarko, in order for him to go out on his way, ulegia lesham, and to come there, acher tzet Shabbat, after the coming out of Shabbat. Comes Rav David Yosef Shlita and he says like this. What does it mean over here when we're saying that it's correct for one to be stringent, not to get on that bus, and he should wait the prescribed time before he gets on that bus? What is that prescribed time? So Rav David Yosef says, from the time that he came out to go on the way, once he started operating the bus to come to your bus station, whatever time that was, that's the time we're going to tell you have to wait. Now there is a little bit of a problem over here. Let's give us a case. Reuven, his shift begins at 6 p.m. on Shabbat, like I mentioned earlier. It takes 1 hour to get to his first pickup stop. Comes Rav David, he says it is correct for you to wait a whole hour before getting on that bus, which would be already 8 o'clock. Now there's a problem with this. What's the problem? Problem number one, no bus is waiting for you for one whole hour. That's a fact. Problem number two, why would you want to wait for a bus another hour if you can go ahead and walk to your destination if you know it's only 30 minutes walking or 40 minutes, even if it's 1 hour? Why wouldn't you just want to walk? So it's not, all right, yes, the halacha tells us you should wait. The reason why, let me explain like this. The reason why Rav David Yosef had to say that even though it's not applicable, because the bus is not waiting for you an hour, and you yourself are not going to wait to get on the bus a whole hour. Let's say he wants to wait, unless you really have to travel somewhere 3 hours out, I don't know. But the reason why Rav David Yosef Shlita brought this concept down of waiting the prescribed time is very simple. We know the halakha says that if a person cooked food by accident on Shabbat, he's allowed to eat it after Shabbat. We explained over there that it is better to wait the prescribed amount of time, how long it took a person to cook that food on Shabbat. So I remember giving the case, let's say a steak, it takes you 30 minutes to do, so don't eat it immediately after Shabbat. Rather wait 30 minutes and then go ahead and eat it. Alright, so that's what he had to tell you, Ad she'yavor shiur hazman. But again, halakha rabotai doesn't change anything, because bottom line is the bus is not waiting for you, or even if the bus is not waiting for you, you're not waiting for the bus, you might as well take another bus or take a taxi or even walk to your destination, especially if it's not far away. Nevertheless, Rav David Yosef Shlita continues and he says something very powerful, which I don't know how many people are very careful with this halakha. באופן שלא ייהנה ממה שנשא בשבת כלל. Rav David Yosef Shlita is sounding like this. In a way where you're not benefiting from the non-observant Jew on this that he had traveled on Shabbat at all. You don't want to get any form of benefit from what he did. So he gives us the example which I spoke about. Ukigon, and for example, Im yatzale darko sha'a achat. If the bus driver went out on the way or on the route 1 hour, kodem tzeta Shabbat, before Shabbat comes out, v'higia el hatachana miyad la'achar tzeta Shabbat. He came immediately. He reached the bus station immediately after Shabbat, after the coming out of Shabbat. Nachon lehachmir shelo lensol be'otobus zeh. He says it is correct to be sure not to travel in this bus at all. So you see over here, actually it does conclude it's correct not to travel in this bus at all. Why? Like I try to give you the two reasons. Number one, the bus is not waiting for you. Number two, you're not waiting for the bus. So that's what he concludes, and he tells you, even though he said on top you should wait the amount of time that he traveled on Shabbat, nobody's waiting. That's what he tells you. He concludes and he says, it is correct to be stringent not to travel in this bus at all. Now I want to just show you a very important point over here. When he says, in a way where you don't get any benefit from what this non-observant Jew traveled on Shabbat with this bus. You shouldn't get any benefit from it at all. So in the case that I gave you, it's an hour. It could have been 2 hours. It could have been 3 hours. So again, you're not going to wait 3 hours. He's not going to wait 3 hours. But whatever the reason is, Rav David Yosef is telling us, it is correct to be stringent, not to get any benefit from the non-observant Jew in this that he desecrated Shabbat by traveling on Shabbat. Even if it's 1 minute, doesn't matter. Okay, 1 minute, you can wait, or he's going to wait. 5 minutes, whatever it is, you want to try to stay away from people that desecrate Shabbat. Try to stay away from that time frame of them desecrating Shabbat. Now Rav David says something even stronger. The first case was speaking about the bus driver came immediately to you after Shabbat. So he says it's better, it's correct to be stringent not to enter into that bus at all. Again, the reason why I'm not telling you should wait an hour, because you're not waiting an hour and the bus is not waiting for you an hour. Unless you're going to wait for another bus, and that also you have to now take chance. And what if it's a non-observant Jew? What are you going to do? Again, you're going to wait another hour? So again, Rabotai, it's not very reasonable to go ahead and say wait an hour. But he said it, I'm just reading it, what I'm seeing over here. This is that case. But now Rav David Yosef goes far to say like this. Even if the bus operator came with his bus to the bus stop, Zman Rav Achar Tzat Shabbat, a very long time after the coming out of Shabbat. Shabbat came out at 7 o'clock, this bus driver came at 10 o'clock. Look what Rav David Yosef says. Nachon shlahachmir, it is correct to be stringent. Shalol and so be'otobozeh, you shouldn't travel in this bus. When? Kol she'il malei nasa b'Shabbat, as long as had he not traveled on Shabbat, lo haya magi el tachana be'oto sha'ah, he would not have arrived to the bus station at that hour or that moment. Meaning to say like this, let's say the bus driver came 10 p.m., which is 3 hours after Shabbat. So you're thinking to yourself, it's not a problem. Comes Rav David and he goes even a step further. And he says like this. If by him operating the bus on Shabbat allowed him to come 5 minutes earlier, he could, if, put it like this, if he would not have operated on Shabbat, he would have come to the bus stop at 10:05. Now that he came to the bus at 10 o'clock, that means he had to operate the bus 5 minutes before Shabbat came out. Since he operated the bus on Shabbat itself, Rav David Yosef Shlita says don't use that bus at all. Rabotai, even though it's already 3 hours after Shabbat, don't use that bus at all. One more time, Rabotai. Va'afilu im higi letachana zman rav, even if the bus came to the bus operator came with his bus a long time after the coming out of Shabbat, nachon lahachmir, is correct to be stringent. Shelo lensoa be'oto bozeh, do not travel in this bus. When shouldn't I travel in this bus? Kol she'il malei nasa b'Shabbat, had he not traveled on Shabbat, lo haya magi latachana be'oto sha'ah, he would not have reached the bus station at that hour. So it's because of him traveling on Shabbat, that's why he reached that bus station at that hour. But if he wouldn't travel on Shabbat, he would come a little bit later. Comes Rav David Yosef and he tells you, since he had to travel on Shabbat, even 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but that allowed him to get there to the next stop, even though it's 3 hours after Shabbat, but it allowed him to come there 10 minutes earlier, he says do not use this bus. Look how careful we have to be from benefiting from malacha, from benefiting from non-observant Jews that desecrate Shabbat. Because when we're going to go ahead and we're going to start benefiting from what they're doing on Shabbat, they're not going to take Shabbat seriously. Eventually, it can even rub on you. You're not going to take Shabbat seriously. So therefore, you want to try to make that, again, halachically, it's not a problem. But he's telling us it's correct to be stringent, Rabotai. So that was the bus case. Now Rav David Yosef Shlita says like this. The same halach is going to apply with everything that we just said on top, is going to apply in regards to a plane. If you had Jews who were pilots and they're not observant Jews, and they arrived to the airport on Shabbat, now this will be hard. It is correct to be stringent. You shouldn't travel in that plane until you wait for the prescribed time to pass that he had operated the plane on Shabbat. For example, you have a non-observant Jew flying in from Orlando, Miami. let's say, I don't know, let's say it takes 3.5 hours to get there. His shift started at 3:30. Now he got to New York, let's say at 6:30, whatever it might be, Rabotai. 3 hours later, or even 7 o'clock, let's say. But 7 o'clock is right after Shabbat. Now you come to the airport, let's say 8 o'clock, 8:30, and you realize that the pilot is a non-observant Jew. And it is known to you that this pilot flew the plane on Shabbat and it took him to fly 3.5 hours in. We're going to tell you, do not, again, not do not. We're going to tell you that it's correct to be stringent not to board that plane until you have waited, not to board. You shouldn't fly that plane until you have waited for 3.5 hours to have passed. Once the 3.5 hours have passed, then you could go ahead and board that plane. Rabotai, the honest truth is this halakha over here will be very hard to do. Because listen, if your flight is at 8:30, let's say it takes 1 hour boarding, whatever it might do, how long can they wait for you after that? So let's say from 7 to 8:30 is an hour and a half. So let's say they wait another hour, is 9:30. So you have another hour you have to wait. I don't think they're going to wait for you another extra hour for you just to board. You know, they have to be on schedule. So it is a problem. It is a very big problem with this. But again, we want to try to learn out something very important over here. How careful we have to try to be when it comes to non-observant Jews operating a bus or a plane, or they do any other form of malacha on Shabbat. Try not to benefit from any form of malacha they do on Shabbat until you have waited the amount of time that it took them to do it on Shabbat. So this way now, when they come and they want to, for example, let's do like this. I'm going to give you a simple example. You have a friend, he doesn't keep Shabbat. He comes to you and he says, listen, let's go out. We're going to go out to have dinner, whatever it is. He comes to you, he picks you up at 7 o'clock. There's people, after Shabbat comes out, pitir, everything fast. Where they're rushing, I don't know. Anyway, he comes, he picks you up at 7 o'clock. You know that it took him to come from Brooklyn to Queens, it takes him 45 minutes. You tell him, listen, even though you could get in the car, But Rav David Yosef says, look what you have to do. In order to show the importance of this halakha, tell your friend, look, it took you 45 minutes. Now let's go to my house. Let's learn a little bit Torah. Let's have some tea. Let's talk about things. I'm not getting in your car until 45 minutes have passed. Once 45 minutes have passed, then I could get in your car. When you do like this, when you behave like this, you know what ends up happening? They start seeing the importance of Shabbat. They start seeing seriousness in you. And they say, wow, if that's how serious it is, two things can happen. Either they're going to start keeping Shabbat, even if they're not going to keep Shabbat, they're going to minimize the desecration of Shabbat. They're no longer going to want to come to you at 7 o'clock, because what's the point? You're going to make them wait anyway 45 minutes. So what they'll do is they'll start coming out after Shabbat. So it's very, very important that our actions speak louder than words. In my spare time, I read there's a book by Dale Carnegie. And again, I read it in the restroom. Okay, excuse me guys, but I don't want people to think I'm doing it when I have free time. I read that in the bathroom, whatever it is. And Dale Carnegie says something very fascinating, and he says that when the eyes are closer to the brain 25 times more than the ears to the brain. So that means to say that, or how do you say that it's larger? Okay, but the concept behind it, he was trying to say that when I see something, it enters me 25 times more than when I hear something. When I hear something, it has to take basically 25 levels before it gets to me. But when I see it, it's 25 levels faster. It's like a express elevator, E-train express. It gets to your brain. Why am I saying this? You could tell, keep Shabbat, it's important. But if your actions don't speak it, if your actions don't speak louder than your words, he could say all you want. His eyes are seeing something quicker, but they're hearing something slower. That's in this situation comes from David Yosef. He says, if you're going to show with your actions, the actions is going to get to him, is going to get the information to his brain 25 times faster than had you said it. If that's going to be the case, they'll have a more serious understanding of Shabbat and Kashrut and Torah. It's very important, Rabotai. This is why a lot of people don't take serious when it comes to speaking shul, because they see everybody else is doing it. All the religions, even the rabbis do it. So why should they not? Why shouldn't they speak? But if they see that when they come up to the rabbi and they ask a rabbi a question, the rabbi says, outside of the shul, call me later. They start picking up. Wow, it's like, and I'll tell like this, when you see something visually, it hits home harder than when you hear. Yeah, you can hear about the news. You can hear this happened, that happened. But when you see something, it makes an impact on you. That's what Rav David Yosef is telling us. Everything that all these non-Jews, they take all these codes, the motivations, everything comes from our Torah. I can even source it for you from our Torah about the importance of seeing. Again, I'm in the restroom, so I'm just learning their books. It's just nice to have understanding of other things, not to waste time in the bathroom. In any event, so that's what Rav David Yosef is telling us. Can you imagine waiting for a plane for 3.5 hours before you're going to board it? Imagine if you miss that plane again. Let's say they don't push off, and you just burned your flight. You show the Kadosh Baruch Hu. You show the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, look how much I'm careful for another Jew not to desecrate your Shabbat. Again, like I said before, halachically, it's not required of you. Rav David Yosef is telling us it's correct to be stringent in order to show importance, Rabotai, show importance to other Jews that are Mechalal Shabbat. From our actions, they will learn. They will not learn from what we say. They will learn from what they see. So now Rav David Yosef speaks about Eretz Yisrael. Ubezmanein, in our times, Be'eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, Sherabu HaPerutzot, where there's many breaches, where many people are just desecrating Shabbat left and right. Be'inin Chilul Shabbat, in regards to desecrating Shabbat. Be'farhesia, people are no longer afraid. They desecrate Shabbat publicly. Ra'u yoter, he says it's fit. It's more proper lahachmir, to be stringent, bazet, to be more stringent in this. Again, in Israel, that's what I said before. By the bus case in Israel, you have it. By the plane case, you have it more in Israel, of course, than New York. But in New York, you should also have it. There's also Jewish pilots. But they will feel this more in Israel. Ubefrat, and especially b'makom shemirubim shomrei Shabbat. Especially where you have a lot of Shomer Shabbat Jews. V'yesh letlot, and one can assume, she'im lo yisu'u itam, if you're not going to fly with them, if you're not going to get on the bus with them, yitzemtzu'u o yafsiku ed chilulei Shabbat. We can assume, we can hope, Rabotai, that they're going to refrain, either they're going to minimize the desecration of Shabbat, or they're going to eventually stop desecrating Shabbat. It all depends on us. Once again, if let's say if it's a lot of Jews traveling to Israel, for example, or a lot of Jews flying out to Miami, imagine you have 60 Jews flying out to Miami or Israel, wherever it might be, and we find out that it's a non-observant Jew, and we all, be'achdut, as one, say we're not getting on this plane. What is the plane going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to understand that Jews are serious. We should never do this again. It's very important, Rabotai. Again, we have the power, Rabotai. We have the power. So we have to be very careful. Even with your own family, you want to be very careful when it comes to these laws of Shabbat. If your mother makes you, food, or if she did something, or tailored clothing for you on Shabbat, don't wear it until you waited the amount of time. Don't even pay him. Don't even say thank you to show your disapprovance with what they did. Rabotai, let's do a small chazara. Bus on Shabbat. If a bus left on Shabbat and the driver is a Jew who breaks Shabbat, even though some rabbis allow riding it right after Shabbat in case of great need, it's better not to. Why? Because the bus drove on Shabbat and you might benefit from the trip it made then. So what should one do? So wait the same amount of time that the bus was driving on Shabbat. Like I explained before, which is very hard to say, unless the bus is going to have to just wait for you. Example, if the bus left 1 hour before Shabbat ended and arrived right after Shabbat came out, then wait 1 extra hour before taking that bus. That was the first case that we spoke about in Rav Daud Yosef. The second case is, even if it arrived much later, still better not to take it. If its early Shabbat travel helped it arrive when it did, by the bus driver, driving it on Shabbat allowed it to come it earlier to the required destination, even if for 5 minutes. Rav Daud Yosef Shita says not to take it. Even if it arrived much later, still better not to take it if its early Shabbat travel helped it arrive when it did. That was with the bus. Same thing with the airplane. Airplane Shabbat, we're going to give you the same rule. If a Jew flew the plane on Shabbat and it landed on Shabbat, don't fly on it or benefit from it until enough time has passed. Remember, you have to give that time of how long it flew. Let's say you had a plane, wow, this is going to be a crazy one. You had a plane from El Al. He flew into New York, to take the passengers back to Eretz Yisrael. Let's say it takes 10 hours, you're going to have to wait 10 hours. That's what Rav David Yosef is saying. It is better to wait 10 hours. Today in Israel, since many people publicly break Shabbat, like running buses or planes on Shabbat, it's even more important to be strict about this, especially in places where many Shabbat-keeping Jews live. Not joining in helps reduce public Shabbat violation. Rabotai, this is very important. We have to try to make Avodat Hashem a priority. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't. We don't. Not joining in helps reduce public Shabbat violation.